Welcome to White Space, Data Center Dynamics' weekly look at news from the data center industry. And this week, a hastily put together episode of commentary on today's shock announcement that Britain has voted to leave the European Union. Okay, so first of all, what does it mean? What's actually happened and what will follow from this referendum as far as we know?
Yes. So the idea is within the next 2 years, the United Kingdom is going to separate from the European Union in a messy, costly divorce that is likely to leave both sides scarred for life.
Yay! Okay, and so the politics will take a fair while to sort out. You'll have noticed that already. The Prime Minister has resigned. There's been a challenge to the Leader of the Opposition. So the game will change in political terms, and before we even get to the stage of applying to leave the European Union, apparently the next stage is we should go to Article 50, which is the process for leaving the European Union. And before we even get to that, we'll have to change the leaders of our parties. And people are asking whether, well, let's see what happens with that. Leaving aside the politics then, what's the implication for business? What's the implication for technology and for data centres? We've had no shortage of people emailing us with statements, and they all say pretty much
nothing, just non-statements of, we're upset that it happened, because most tech companies did want to stay in, but they try and kind of put a brave face on it. We had KPMG saying, it'll be okay, everyone, it's fine, it's not on fire, and I mean, it probably will be mostly okay, but there's a lot of concern and a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah, assuming that this Brexit thing goes on its way, tech companies may well want to move to Europe, to Ireland or mainland Europe. Because of the European regulations, which apparently were so irksome and unpopular with the population at large, there are many things about them that tech organisations liked. Before the referendum, we had the results of a poll from Tech UK, the industry's, the UK's tech industry body, and that said that their membership was very wholeheartedly in favour of staying in Europe.
70%. Yeah, I went for
yes. But then even aside from those facts, it kind of sows seeds of uncertainty throughout Europe, I think, because there's already kind of suggestions that maybe in France, the Marine Le Pen, Front National Party, and even in the Netherlands, that they're suggesting that maybe even be referenda there. So the uncertainty is kind of spreading a bit. So you can't. Not sure if you can be sure about investment in data centers in Europe, really.
Yeah, that's got to be damaging.
So buy gold.
Yeah, buy gold. But another opinion we got is that the sort of some of the promises being made before this referendum is sort of like, oh yeah, we're going to get exemption from all these European rules. And according to this lady from PHS Data Solutions, they do data destruction essentially and data management. This might not be the case, because if you want to trade with Europe, you will likely have to subscribe to things like General Data Protection Regulation, which is coming in force across Europe in 2 years. So by the time we're about to leave, and which is, we've covered it a lot, right? It's gonna make matters more complicated when you're hosting your data in Europe, but is seen on the whole as a good thing. And the UK is not getting an exemption because if it wants to trade with Europe, it will have to subscribe to the same rules and provide the same safeguards. Otherwise, it's going to be closer to America, and the relationship between EU and US over surveillance is pretty strained, right?
I think the problem is with the uncertainty, especially with the data center, the cost to build it, then the time before you get a good return is so long that if there's even the hint of maybe this country's not going in the right direction, maybe it's not going to be working with the rest of this giant market properly, then you've got to be safe and maybe go somewhere else. And it's interesting as well, you have the majority of submarine cables between the US going through here in Ireland, or going to Ireland then to here, to London. In the future, I mean, you've already got some now going to Spain, will we see a further migration of cables outside the UK and just everyone shifting away? Quite possibly.
You're talking about very long-term things there, because it takes a couple of years to actually lay this cable. And as you say, it takes a couple of years sometimes to build a data centre. So, data centres which were already planned are still being built. There was a report that Google was putting some decisions on hold, a week before the referendum. They said that some decisions were being put on hold until after the referendum. So things like that may happen. And it's worth also, again, we mentioned it before, reiterating that the process of exit hasn't started yet. There's been a referendum. Technically, the referendum is non-binding, and the process of exit doesn't start until Article 50 is invoked, and takes another 2 years after of that. So for 2 years, in theory, it's business as usual. Though if anybody's been through a major corporate sort of merger, acquisition, or division, they'll know that things start to happen. The uncertainty will be there, which takes us back to the identikit quote and comment we've had from every company in the industry: prepare for years of uncertainty.
Yes, but in the short term as well, because we've got a very weak pound, which might actually work to the benefit, people more willing to spend over here, and the same situation has worked for data center providers in Greece and Russia. So we heard reports from there, and in Russia it was Accelerate, in Greece it was
Lambda
Helix, of course. And those guys said that despite, really terrible market conditions, their business is doing quite fine, because people still need to host their data, and people are more willing to spend if the euro or the pound is cheap.
Okay, so we're saying, suppose this sparks a recession. Today we've already seen the pound falling, which will have short-term, if that remained the case, then it becomes more expensive to buy the equipment you want if you're in this country and you're buying equipment. But also, as we've been saying, it becomes easier for people outside the country to buy your services. And so data centres that are already in operation dig in, and provided you can convince people that the politics will work and that it's still worth putting foreign data into those data centres, or that you have a particular need to get it into a UK data centre now, then they can offer them good deals. So real estate is another issue. I suppose you could predict a fall in real estate prices, which might make it easier to get hold of what you need to build a data centre.
What about environmental regulation, things like European Code of Conduct? Is that the EU project, or?
It's not binding in any way, and the European Code of Conduct has been driven mostly from the UK anyway. It's based on some work done at BSI. The other European regulations that apply to data centres continue to apply for the next 2 years, continue to apply forever if the eventual deal we have is designed to allow people to carry on doing business with the rest of Europe.
And then I guess the final thing is, well, Scotland may themselves secede from the UK and then join the EU. So they might also be an area you have some investment there with data centres there.
Right, so if you're watching this from outside of the UK, you're probably wondering how on earth this happened. So are we. We didn't vote for this personally, and the industry we represent didn't vote for it either, as far as we can tell. The consequences are still to be worked out. There are a lot of people trying to mitigate it and find ways to make this work, which I suppose is the most positive thing we can say at this stage.
Yes, 17 million people in this country voted to remain in Europe, so we'll just get on with it.
Right, thank you for joining us. Join us next time for hopefully a slightly more positive white space.
And we leave the UN.
This is the end, my own.